Thank you. And again, I'm David, this is Peter, and it is absolutely our pleasure to be here today to share a little bit about how we are moving into something that we think is inevitable in terms of Web3 technology, blockchain, and certainly all things engagement. What the world has historically called loyalty, but that's a very broad way to talk and discuss about engagement technologies and engagement in general. So we wanted to begin a little bit with our theory and thesis around engagement in terms of why people engage. And we at Algeo, we've been doing this for about 20 years, and over the last 20 years, we've probably sold and or acquired businesses in the range, in total of, $600–700 million. So we've been doing this for quite a while. We're a global company today, represented in, call it 100, almost every country in the world, but call it 180 countries. We have three pillars around engagement. The first, and these have stood the test of time, even pre-2007 iPhone, right? Which was a transformative year in so many different ways, not just the iPhone, but that year in particular. The first is that we always focus on the individual benefit. And we think about whether it's an employee at a company, a consumer, a member of an organization, how does that individual benefit, right, economically, meaning financially, and emotionally or experientially. Second, and that's where most of our competitors in anything in engagement or marketing or loyalty sort of begin and end. The second thing is much more recent, say in the last decade, and that's what when we think about group effect or group validation. In other words, if we're trying to drive a particular behavior, how can we enable, if we try to drive a particular behavior by or through an individual, how do we enable that individual to see others like him or her doing the same thing? And we're able to group validate or that group dynamic, when we're able to bring that to life, it inevitably drives acceleration in all that we do. And Web3 technology is unlike anything else in terms of that viral component. The third is what we call shared values. And if we're building a program in sustainability for a client, or if it's an employee workplace recognition program worldwide, or if it's just a typical loyalty program in fintech, how can we take whatever the core of those values are that we're trying to embed, that are represented by either that sector, that company, that value system, that culture, how do we embed them into the everyday experience? And we're able to nail all three of those pillars. Our programs just flat out work. And it doesn't matter whether it's Web 3.0, Web 1.0, Web 2.0, whatever the technology is, they work. So the other thing that's really interesting about this time around engagement is this. Money is a social construct as much as it is a government construct. In Web 1.0 and in Web 2.0, social constructs are not equitable, meaning when you or we all participate, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, we actually don't benefit. In blockchain, in Web 3.0 technology, we all benefit from where we participate. It makes this time and this period so freaking unique and so exciting that it's going to drive all kinds of new behaviors as social and economic value intersect for individuals. And we don't pretend, by the way, to have the answers. We just pretend to get started. And one of the challenges, from what I understand happened this morning, is what does this all mean? Where do we start? And today we're going to share a little bit more about our strategy, and then we're actually going to tell you where we're starting and how we're evolving relative to leveraging our assets and our strengths in our relationships in the market today. So as we flip then to Algeo, this is a little about who we are. This is sort of the fluff and bubble. Again, we're a global leader in engagement technologies, based, believe it or not, in Minnesota. We have actually an office here in town where I was this morning at 48th and Madison, but we're spread out all over. We have offices all over, domestically primarily, and then our presence globally. Next slide is a little bit, again, we just wanted to share a little bit about what as we look at sort of the macro environment and some of the trending that's driving our thinking. There's just a few slides we want to share in that regard. The first is one that I've referenced, and that is the empowered self. When we look at the defining features of 3.0 tech, decentralization, right? Trustlessness, meaning there's no trusted intermediary. Permissionless, meaning anyone can participate without authority from a governing body. Think of course, DeFi, where no intermediaries, such as brokerages, exchanges, banks, et cetera. An individual, by call it 5 years from now, will effectively be their own bank, right? And take ownership over their own digital assets. So to a very real degree, it's no longer a consumer-driven world. It's a consumer world, period. Next slide. In terms of chapter and verse, we're entering an entirely new chapter in our internet journey, one of digital empowerment, again, from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0. And there, in our view, and I think we share this, not everyone will agree as to where cryptocurrencies are going, what crypto loyalty might be. We're what we call infrastructure, meaning we don't have a particular view about Bitcoin or Solana or Ether or whatever it might be. We actually have a view, though, that there's an inevitability to the exchange of digital assets, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, which we'll come to in a moment, and other forms of digital assets. So this is a journey, and it's got multiple chapters. Content creation and influencers, you're going to think, well, where does this have to do with all this, are becoming the primary forms of promoting and advertising. And what does Web3 technology do? It actually facilitates that in a way that no other technology has historically. Accelerated during COVID, spending more of our lives in the digital space, that's what this is all about. So it is inevitable that we're shifting to transacting in a digitally native way. And really, for the first time probably in all of our lives, there's this extraordinary intersection that's economic, that's commerce-driven, that's community-driven, connection, experiences, and social in the most authentic way.
Awesome. Thank you, David. So, regardless of the price of Bitcoin going up or down, the interesting thing is that crypto is growing faster than any technology ever introduced. Think about that. And it's actually outpacing the early internet when you think about the growth in the late 90s and early 2000s, and on track to reach 3.5 billion users by the end of the decade. But why? Why are we seeing this rapid adoption? It all goes back to, as David noted, individual empowerment. Crypto gives consumers more ownership, more control, and more optionality in their financial lives. And in the same way that the internet changed the way that we exchange and access information, crypto is changing the way that we exchange and access value. We really saw crypto take off during COVID because as inflation and economic uncertainty loom, people are looking and seeking new ways to take control over their financial lives and the way that they save, invest, the way that they earn and spend, really accelerating this trend that we're seeing playing out across really every industry. But before we dive deeper, let's take a second to talk about what this all means. First, how did we get here? A little history lesson. So, before Bitcoin, if you think about it, the only way to exchange something without a trusted third party standing in between was cash, as in paper money. Now, the breakthrough of blockchain, which is the underlying technology behind cryptocurrency, is that it created a way to exchange value without relying on any single trusted third party, which means that for the first time in history, we have a way to exchange something of value directly from person to person remotely. Bitcoin enabled the world's first open payment system where anyone in the world, regardless of race, nationality, gender, or creditworthiness, can access the financial system with an internet connection. But I think in the session earlier, somebody referred to blockchain as the internet of value and Web3 as the internet of value. This trustless open system expands far beyond payments. And we believe that this underlying technology is really enabling the digital exchange of more than just currency. So now foundationally, we see this technology enabling new levels of, number one, access. Anyone, anywhere in the world, anytime can access, hold, or send digital currency and other digital items of value, property and what have you, with a mobile device and an internet connection. Oops. Number two is ownership. For the first time, those assets are owned by you and you alone, protected by a password, really playing back into this trend of individual empowerment with consumers ultimately in control. And number three is trust. You may not trust one single person or entity, but would you trust everyone? That's what blockchain does, is it enables a deeper level of trust based on the consensus of a community rather than a single person or business, which really ultimately brings a new wave of ways to exchange and interact with each other. So now that we have some background on crypto and how we're viewing what this new technology can enable, let's talk about our topic today, which is crypto loyalty, something that we at Agio have been spending much time, energy, and effort understanding and developing. really answering the question, if you think about what is crypto loyalty, how do we use this new technology to reimagine the way that we're engaging consumers, building brands, attracting and retaining employees, building culture. Really taking this abstract topic of crypto, of Web3 and blockchain, and applying it to the way that we motivate, that we engage, and that we inspire individuals. So over the past 18 months, we've been working diligently with some of our largest clients to develop and execute their crypto loyalty strategies. And the goal of today's session is to dive into some of the things that we're learning and deploying in market. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to David, first off to share a little bit more practically what we're seeing in the market in terms of how institutions and organizations are taking their first steps into crypto and Web3.
Thank you, Peter. So let me sort of explain where this all began. About a year, so we do, as a loyalty company, among our different revenue streams is redemption revenue, meaning think of earning points and redeeming those points on your credit card, or you're an employee of an organization, Ernst & Young, P&G, T-Mobile, they're all clients of ours, and you earn, and they might spend millions of dollars a year to compensate employees tied to performance metrics, sales goals, whatever those things might be. Well, those employees, those customers, cardholders, need a place to go redeem. So we do millions of dollars of redemption a month, and we were approached about a year ago by a number of clients asking us, is there a place for our cardholders to redeem for fractional shares of cryptocurrencies? So we looked around the market, we looked at NYDIG, we looked at BitCo, we looked at Lolly, a number of others. We concluded, you know what, there's a better way to do this. That's less advocacy oriented, it's more about education, it's a little more risk averse, and that's where we began. And so what we've built now is a system to enable, this is where we started, right? This is in process, it's live today, and it's where we're starting, for an ability for an individual to redeem their points for, again, fractional shares of, and this is what Peter's going to take you through in a moment, for fractional shares of leading cryptocurrencies. We started in fintech, not fintech per se, but financial services, because we have so many relationships with card processors, with payment networks, with banks, and that's what this slide is in front of you. And this is the ultimate testament when leading brands and fintechs are entering the space. And by the way, there's a difference. We're reading a lot about what banks are doing on the wealth management side. Think, in other words, if you're trading stocks or have a brokerage account with a large bank, are they enabling you to do the same thing in crypto? That's not us. We're on the retail or the consumer side, right? And which is very different. And what we love about it is with loyalty currencies in particular, it creates an easy entry point into crypto for consumers and companies. And it feeds the sort of the crypto curiosity of consumers. And you're seeing, look what it does. Now, by the way, these stats are probably pre this recessionary time we've hit in the last few weeks, but maybe a bit more than a few weeks, but a few months at most. But you're still seeing significant spend increase, which is most important to our bank clients, right? They want to know, is this driving more spend on our cards? Is this driving more acquisition of cardholders? The answer is flat out yes, and it's not a close call.
And one thing I'll add on that too is what we're seeing is that most folks are, or to some extent, have heard about crypto. Many are crypto curious, and rewards really create an easy way. You see the stat: 57% of folks are interested in entering crypto through rewards. Why? Because it's a great way to learn with very little. I guess you don't have to tap out of your pocket. You can use loyalty rewards to enter the space and start to learn.
So with all that said, we're jumping out of the employee to compensation. In other words, so the easy entry point is our loyalty points. Many of us think of those points, like, again, points you earn on your credit card, as you can play with these points a little bit. It's sort of comfortable to do that. When it comes to your compensation, there's a mix of view on this. In particular, given what's happened to the value of cryptocurrencies in the last few months, right? But initially, we saw athletes lead the way, meaning pay me in Bitcoin. Now there's major teams like the Yankees and the Rockets supporting it at the organizational level. So others are starting to do it. The next generation, meaning the younger population workforce, is looking for ways of sort of seeking new benefits. So this, again, feeds that curiosity. There's a lot of motion here, but again, we're very, very careful. We need to be very careful because this is not about advocating for crypto. The worst thing that happens is an employer pushes employees or gives them this option to take some of their compensation in crypto. Maybe it's $10 per paycheck. It can be that low. And then they lose a bunch of money, and that is attributed back to the employer. That's a really bad day. So we're really careful about how we're doing this. But at the end of the day, the stats are the stats, which is you're seeing 36% of people want to see this possibility in terms of paycheck opportunity. And again, people are curious. And then lastly, the other area, of course, is just consumer loyalty, right? Just the red, bloody ocean of retail loyalty, and then other sort of ancillary loyalty programs. And this is, you know, brands are all brand. You're seeing this now sort of across the board. Brands are finding places to start. I can't tell you how many conversations we're engaged with, might be direct retailers or other brands that are playing in the commerce space broadly defined. You've got Chipotle Rewards. You saw what Starbucks just launched recently with what they're calling Odyssey, and they have these experiences and these reward points and journey stamps, and they've done something really interesting. We know that team really well, incidentally, but they've built that platform without a wallet, which is really interesting. And at the end of the day, and some might disagree and differ with this perspective, Starbucks launched a program that's basically just a proprietary loyalty program to them, right? I mean, there's nothing that magical about it, but it gives them so much, they built it on the Ethereum platform, it gives them so much possibility as the market comes to them. They don't have to lead the market, but it gives them a lot more possibility building it on that technology relative to partnership, what was expressed this morning, I think, is co-opetition. They can work across partners in ways that current technologies make much more difficult. So this is, at the end of the day, in terms of consumer loyalty, it's the ultimate intersection of economic value, gamification, and experience. Think of when someone redeems, you all might redeem $100 for a gift card to Amazon, Target, whatever it might be. You're one and done. It's gone. You'll redeem again, but that's the end of it. When you redeem $100 for like a fractional share of Bitcoin, right? You're coming back, you're checking the share status, you're coming back and forth, and you're doing it all under the umbrella or the auspices of that brand where you redeemed. So it's more like an interactive currency, and it's fun, right? It depends on it's fun. If it's a lot of money and you're losing a lot of money, it ain't going to be that fun, but it can be a lot of fun. And that's what's so unique about just this sort of tactical thing within loyalty. And then lastly, the big picture on why, for example, Starbucks might build this on a different technology is it's easier to share data between brands on the blockchain, period, end of stop. Think of coalition marketing, Air Miles, Nectar, et cetera. What blockchain enables to do in terms of data sharing between companies is unlike any technology that's existed in the past. There's the portability of the digital assets. In other words, think I'm a Delta flyer. I have Delta points. If this were built on blockchain and it was enabled, I could just sell my Delta points to someone else freely. Right? That doesn't really exist in loyalty currency world today. So there's the portability of digital assets. There's just more optionality for brands. It's better promotionally with viral strategy. In other words, if I own a journey stamp for Starbucks, it's going to naturally tag all of my social network stuff, profiles. So there's a viral component that Starbucks just loves. So it turns customers actually into promoters. And those are just a few illustrations of why this is so unique and so different as a technology as compared to legacy sort of loyalty technologies. Peter.
So now we're going to switch gears for a moment. I'll spend a few minutes talking about how we're taking our first steps in the world of what we call crypto loyalty. And the development and launch of Heaps, which is our own proprietary crypto loyalty platform, which is ultimately designed to engage customers and employees by enabling the conversion of points, of rewards, of any loyalty currency into leading crypto assets, eventually NFTs and so forth. We've really built an end-to-end experience designed to engage. First and foremost, leading with education. The ability to start with rewards and access and learn about the world of crypto and blockchain, with flexible ways to invest through cash, through points, through payroll allocation and more, and even ways to earn free crypto through your everyday purchases as a way to learn about and enter this space. So I'll take a few minutes and walk through what we've built in terms of the product. So Heaps is its own wallet and exchange that ultimately enables you to convert rewards or cash into leading crypto assets. We've built it in a way to plug into any existing points program, rewards program, points bank, employee recognition solution. We ultimately give consumers choice of 5 to 10 leading crypto assets. Our view is that it truly needs to be educational. It's important to give consumers choice and not being Bitcoin only, but giving a choice. But it's also important to not maybe offer the hundreds of maybe more speculative currencies you might see on Coinbase or FTX. Once inside the platform, users have the ability to securely link their bank to buy and sell crypto, to invest with points and even roundups, where eventually you're able to take every time you're swiping your card for a cup of coffee, we're taking that spare change and investing it into Bitcoin as an example. The user has their own one-to-one wallet powered by Prime Trust. Our view is that we want to educate folks on the spirit of blockchain and Web3 and giving them true ownership over their crypto assets, and also supporting NFTs, which we'll touch on in a moment here. But one thing we really want to spend some time on is the importance of leading with education. I think the common theme I've heard from this morning is really a lack of understanding of the space. And our view is that what better way to learn than acquiring some crypto and holding it, looking at the value, and then subsequently learning about not only the currency but the ecosystem surrounding it. We think it's really important to make sure consumers, employees are entering with an informed perspective, educating not only on the basics of crypto and blockchain, but the risks that may come along with investing, as well as the potential benefits. Including the ability to work with brands to co-brand educational content to help introduce their employees, their consumers with an educational perspective. We talk about places for brands to start. We think education is the right place. One of the unique things we've done is you think about this concept of found money. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Acorns. Acorns recognize that there's a massive audience that, for whatever reason, wasn't investing the way that folks are traditionally building wealth in the United States, which is 401ks and diversified portfolios. We're taking this idea of found money, in other words, money that's not coming directly out of your pocket, to enable folks to learn about and acquire some crypto. So, what we're trying to do is bridge loyalty rewards with everyday life. It's more immersive, it's more engaging, and again, it's another way to get folks into the space and educated. What it means is that we've built out a marketplace with north of 1,000 brands. Every time you shop, whether I'm buying groceries from Walmart, from the Walmart app or Walmart.com, maybe I'm going to my weekly Home Depot trip, I'm earning 2%, 3% back in Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency of my choice, not out of my pocket, but from the merchant's pocket. Again, a great way to learn about the space. And from a brand perspective, it's a great way to drive ongoing engagement, because you're literally marrying loyalty currency with everyday shopping along with crypto and Web3. So I'll take a moment and sort of switch gears to how we're seeing the world of employers and attracting, retaining, and engaging talent. And what we're seeing is first steps that some organizations are taking in the space. Companies really are we're all trying to rebuild what can feel like a decimated culture after COVID. Trying to bring folks back into the office, building culture has been difficult. And as demand for access to crypto experiences, particularly among Gen Z and younger audiences, continues to grow, our view is that it's important to provide optionality to attract and retain the best talent. So what we've built is a way to offer access to allocate even a few dollars from every paycheck into Bitcoin or leading crypto assets with no integration required for the employer. We plug into ADP, Gusto, Paylocity, you name it. And it's literally a 5-minute educational setup process for the employee to make sure, again, that they're entering with an informed perspective. We see this as an easy tactical way for employers to start offering new and differentiated benefits. Again, bringing this all back to consumer empowerment, providing the optionality. So now I'm going to pass it over to David to talk about some of the things we're seeing in the NFT space.
Yeah, so, and again, I don't think any one of us in the room today, maybe I'm wrong, has all the answers yet as to where this is all headed. So I think most importantly, we found a place to begin. And I think relative to NFTs, it's no different. It's still, in our view, very early days in terms of NFTs, even though they're increasingly becoming a new way to elevate engagement with consumers, with members, even with cardholders and employees. The big problem I think we all have, at least I have, is that we don't know where to go and trust to discover quality and trustworthy NFT collections, utilizations, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is early days. You see NFT specialty marketplaces like NBA Top Shop, NFT marketplaces, OpenSea, Coinbase, NFT, et cetera, NFT price trackers, and the list goes on. What is actually really interesting, I was listening to a podcast over the weekend, and maybe this is obvious to you, I guess it wasn't to me, is that NFTs are actually, when you think about digital assets and the way we're all exchanging and transacting on the internet, they're like status symbols. For many people, they're like status symbols. Why would I wear a fancy watch? Why would I drive a BMW? Why would any of us do that? We don't really need to. So when you think about digital sort of engagement, NFTs are to a very real degree status symbols, which is, by the way, that's not sustainable long-term in our view, but it's sort of where we've started. NFTs are creating, though, new forms of digital property, and they're becoming more and more utility-like versus just speculative. Think of the Steph Curry digital autograph or even a digital baseball card. You know, think of like Steph Curry putting out 500 digital cards, and they're going to no different than we would trade on a Babe Ruth baseball card, right? There's value in that. That's, you know, probably the most easy way to describe it. But you're increasingly seeing digital access passes. Think of Coachella music festivals, digital representations of products like Nike sneaker drops, customers owning a piece of a brand's heritage. So we're really just, and even what Starbucks just announced, so we're really on the very front end of all of this. In the end, though, it's the technology. It's not the underlying token. It's music, existing IP, sports franchises. It's awarding, attending live audiences. That's where this seems to be headed, at least on a near-term basis. But it's going to have multiple chapter and verses. Blockchain, again, is the base layer. Consumer experiences, including NFTs, is the layer that's built on top of it.
I think that's a great segue into sort of, you know, where more broadly, where do we see the industry headed in terms of how blockchain expands possibilities in loyalty and customer and employee engagement? You know, what's different in Web3 is that for the first time, participation and ownership brings both social status and economic benefit. You think of sort of the quintessential example of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. An NFT drop, everyone has their own, you know, unique avatar, and ownership of this asset gets you access to exclusive events, social status, you know, exclusive, you know, VIP parties, and other perks. And investing in that group and that community personally brings you both social status and economic benefit because your membership pass, your NFT, is accruing economic value. So I think that's the interesting opportunity with NFTs as it relates to sort of bridging both social benefit and economic benefit. Number two is that in the Starbucks Odyssey example, is that blockchain enables multi-brand loyalty alliances in ways that were previously difficult to execute. What do I mean by that? You look at Starbucks with what they just released with Odyssey. You know, you earn journey stamps for engaging with Starbucks. They unlock experiences and rewards. The experience feels very Web 2, if you think about it. But because it's built on Web 3 rails, it's easy to carry journey stamps across chain to interact and engage with other brand partners. It's also, you know, easier to share data between parties. You think about a loyalty alliance between two brands, having sort of a shared, trusted database of information in terms of how that customer is engaging with and redeeming that NFT, it solves another problem from that perspective. And then number three is that we really see opportunities created by NFTs in enabling gated access to digital experiences, to community, and to commerce in unique ways. You think about, you know, the verifiable ownership and scarcity driving demand, and how, you know, NFTs can be used for access passes to online communities. Think about a gated Discord group that only a subset of NFT holders have access to. You can essentially use the NFT as a key to get access to communities, to, you know, exclusive product drops. You think about gated commerce and providing access to products only to NFT holders, or, you know, exclusive discount tiers. These are things that we see NFTs unlocking as, you know, sort of the membership pass use case. So that's really where we see this, you know, the possibilities of Web3 in terms of loyalty expanding over time. A few sort of closing thoughts, because I know we're at time here, and we'd love to get to a couple questions. You know, ultimately, we believe that, you know, we're still very early days, and we're learning this alongside everyone. It's funny, you talk to experts in the space, and nobody's really truly an expert. It's only been a few years. But what we do believe is that there's an inevitability to the exchange of digital assets, in that we really are spending more and more of our time in interacting in digital space. And especially given that crypto brings consumers more ownership, more control and optionality in their lives, we really think that there's a movement in this direction. So to sort of wrap things up, what is crypto loyalty? It's really trying to reimagine the way that we engage customers, the way that we build brands, empower employees, and even build culture. It's really trying to apply this new technology, blockchain and Web3, to change the way that we motivate and engage and inspire individuals. So that's a wrap. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
We did have one question come in before you give them the round of applause. So the question is, the economics of loyalty work today because the provider can deliver your rewards from a sunk asset. For example, Hilton points buy you a room that was not going to be sold anyway. So how does a provider like Starbucks or Hilton economically acquire the crypto to reward the loyalty member with? How is this different, better than cash back?
So it's a loaded question. Loaded. But the first question really is why would Starbucks pay for a reward that can be redeemed with Hilton, right? Or pay for a reward that can be redeemed somewhere else, outside of their system, driving more transactions within their system. That's the fundamental issue in what has historically been coalition marketing. That's why it hasn't really worked in more complex ecosystems like here in the United States, right? And so when you look at that, and then you look at the intersection of this empowerment of the consumer, the reason a Starbucks is building their technology to enable that very ability to redeem something that they're paying for outside of their system is because the consumer is going to, again, fast forward 5 years from now, we're going to be empowered in ways that none of us see coming. And it's going to force the hand of most retail brands to be able to do just that. So while it might be margin dilutive to them, literally, that's the idea. And then to answer the question specifically, blockchain enables data sharing so that, for example, if Starbucks and Hilton are partners, and they're sharing loyalty points and loyalty redemptions, what they want to make sure is, let's say a Hilton customer signs up to be part of the program and is already a Starbucks customer. Starbucks wants to know that as they're issuing loyalty currency to that existing Starbucks customer, it's not becoming too dilutive to them, because it's just margin dilutive. They already have that customer. Why would they give them a discount in the form of loyalty points? So what this technology enables, is to tier it, to come up with some really unique, constructive ways to deliver meaningful value to the customer, but also protect the brand relative to the sort of economic framing of the whole thing, if that makes sense. But there's sort of the broad brush strategy, and then there's the specific sort of, here's an economic example of that.
Excellent. All right, thank you guys. Give them a round of applause. Thank you for all that great insight.